Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Richel Ganansyal, and we are already on our seventh session for the subject Human Resources Management. And the session for tonight is all about recruiting in labor markets. Okay, now let me share to you what do you expect, what can you expect from this session. Okay, so you will be able to learn different ways that labor markets can be identified and approached, discuss advantages and disadvantages of internal and external recruiting, specify three internal sources for recruiting, list and briefly discuss the five external recruiting sources, explain why internet recruiting has grown and how employers are conducting it. That's quite interesting, and discuss how factors to consider when evaluating recruiting efforts. All right, so let's talk about recruiting in labor markets here. Recruiting is the process of generating a pool of qualified applicants for organizational jobs. Recruiting is about finding qualified applicants, and doing that often requires much more than just running an ad in newspaper, which is very true. The staffing process matches people with jobs through recruiting and selection. Okay? And in this session, we will focus on the recruitment first. And of course, like in the next uh, session, we will be talking about selection. Okay? So, in recruitment, for example, simply acquiring a human capital, it necessitates to replace normal workforce attrition and to provide for growth probably would require an employer to, let's say, know the industry to successfully recruit qualified employees, identify keys to um, success in the labor market, and then cultivate networks and relationships with sources of prospective employees, promote the company brand so that the organization is known as a good place to work, and create recruiting metrics in order to measure the effectiveness of a recruiting effort. Okay, so without significant HR attention on this, so recruiting can become just a set of, let's say, administrative function. Okay, so in recruitment, it's more than just an administrative function. In recruitment, you have to think about being strategic. Okay, so that's why we discuss in the previous session about HR management, strategic HR management and planning, because in recruitment we need to be strategic. Okay. So what is strategic recruitment? Strategy is a general framework that provides guidance for actions. Okay, and strategic recruitment or recruiting becomes quite more important as, of course, labor markets shift and become even more competitive these days. So HR planning helps to align HR strategies with organizational goals and plans. And it is important that recruiting be viewed as a part of strategic HR planning, because recruiting is the mechanism that makes the plans work. Okay? So since we say that strategy is, a general framework that provides guidance for action, let's say if a company is, driven by technology, so the recruitment strategy must determine how to bring in, the best technologists, okay? Or if the strategy of a company is based on marketing, so the focus should be on where the company will look to find the best marketing candidates, okay? So that's just, an example of how you would think to be quite strategic in your recruitment. Well, strategic recruiting may sometimes need to go beyond just, filling empty positions in your workplace or organization. It can actually focus on, let's say, discovering new or, existing talents, okay, or untapped talents before you actually need it, and then capitalizing on such windfall opportunities when there is an abundance of highly qualified people, or perhaps like developing strong internet recruiting abilities, which is very common and quite the norm these days. Okay, so there are a lot of options you can think of to be quite strategic with the recruitment. Okay, this one is a strategic recruiting stages. So there is HR planning, then organizational responsibilities, then strategic recruiting decisions, and then the methods. So generally, recruiting decisions dictate not only the kinds and the numbers of applicants, but also how difficult or successful recruiting efforts is. Okay? Even during periods of, let's say, reduced hiring, well, the ability to implement the company's long-range plan via HR may mean, keeping in contact with outside recruiting sources just to maintain, let's say, viability or, sorry, visibility, while you also maintain employee recruiting channels within or inside your organization. Okay? So when you do planning, you do think about how many employees will be needed, when will the employees be needed, what are the specific KSA, okay? And then what diversity goals need to be met. Okay? Organizational responsibilities would have like HR staff and operating managers to team up with such effort. And on strategic recruiting decisions, there will be like organization based, or you go for outsourced presence of the recruiting and branding, imaging. So training your or providing training to your recruiters and all the stuff. So the method could be internal, external, or you have to use the internet. Okay, because staffing takes place in different labor markets, that can vary a great deal. Okay, so learning some basics about labor markets would help in understanding recruiting. Okay, so labor markets are the external supply pool from which employers attract employees. Okay? So when we say labor market, there are employers and there are employees. Okay? So uh, to understand where recruiting takes place, one can perhaps think of the sources of employees as a funnel. As you can see there, it's a funnel. It's an inverted uh, pyramid. So in which we can think of it as a funnel, you know, screening and all the stuff. So the broad scope of labor markets narrows progressively to the point of, let's say, selection and job offers. So, of course, if the selected candidates rejects the offer, then HR staff members must move back to the funnel and to the applicant pool. I mean, trying to access from your pool again. And of course, if you can't find anyone, then you have to reopen the recruitment process again. Okay, let's say your individual selected, let's say the candidate being selected rejected the offer. Then you go back to the applicant pool again, or perhaps like applicant population, like you have to rerun your ad, rerun the, recruitment process. So that is the essence of this figure here. Next. That is the labor market components. Okay, so what are the labor market components? So labor force population. Labor force population, which is made up of individuals who are available for selection if all possible recruitment, strategies are used. So this large number of potential applicants may be reached using many different recruiting methods. So for example, you use newspaper ads, job boards, college job fairs, or simply like a word of mouth, referrals. So each recruiting method would reach different segments of the labor force population. Okay? Then applicant population is the applicant population is a subset of the labor force population that is available for selecting using a particular recruitment approach. For example, an organization might limit its recruitment for management trainees to, let's say, MBA graduates from major universities. So these recruiting methods result in a different group of applicants you have from those who might apply if the employer advertises openings for management trainees on a local radio station or post in a listing on an internet jobs board. So, because you have outlined MBA graduates from major universities, so you have created certain applicant population. Okay, so applicant pool, that's the third one, that consists of all persons who are actually evaluated for selection. Okay? Well, there are many factors that can affect the size of your applicant pool, which that includes the reputation of your organization, and of course, the industry as a place to work, whether that's a kind of industry that is quite prevalent, or let's say an industry that pays um, competitively to the applicants or to the workforce. So it can also affect to include screening efforts of your organization, the job specifications, and of course, any information available. So if a suitable candidate can be found, the organization, of course, eventually selects the individual and, just make the offer. Okay, job offer. All right. So there are four recruitment decisions that would affect reaching the applicant population. First is the recruitment method. So you advertise, you choose medium, and then include use of employment agencies. Then recruiting message. What is said about the job and how it is communicated. So that's why it is very important to consider the image and the branding of your company that would be enhanced or carried on by the recruitment method that you have. Okay. Or let's say like a company that cares its employee. That's quite a tagline that would create an image or an impact. Okay. Applicant qualifications required, educational level, amount of experience, the skills needed, all the stuffs. Okay, all the qualifications of applicant. Administrative procedure. Uh, would the applicant follow up? Would the applicant can need to, submit uh, just an application letter, um, or a resume, or a curriculum vitae. Okay, there is a difference between resume and curriculum vitae. Okay, I hope you are able to research that one though. I may require you to create a curriculum vitae or a resume. Okay, anyway, um, for this one, let's say an employer must make a number of recruitment decision based on the identified needs. Well, of course, part of the HR planning. So, the way these decisions affect your company strategy, or these decisions affect your strategy, your organization has to choose a critical part of deciding which among the applicants is your right choice. Okay. Next is organization-based or outsourced recruitment. Okay. Will you outsource your recruitment activity, or your people perhaps, or your staff will be outsourced? Right? So these are just like factors that the management will have to decide also. Okay. Well, initial and basic decision would probably be whether the recruitment will be done by you as an employer or, by someone else as an outsource. So that decision need not be either or decision, okay? So most organizations, HR staff members handle, of course, bulk of the recruitment effort. What's the use of having like HR recruitment manager if you don't uh, do the recruitment in-house? So you really have to do it. Um, because recruiting can be a time-consuming process. That's why like some would go for outsourcing and given some other responsibilities, so that's why they do outsourcing. But recruiting can be outsourced in a number of ways. Okay, for example, large employers outsource such functions as placement of advertisement. Okay, so initial screening of resumes and initial phone contacts with phone applicants can also be outsourced. Okay, so once those activities are done, so then the employer's HR staff can take over the test or the rest of the recruitment activities. Okay, well, as you may probably observe, there are some employment agencies, local and international jobs. So that actually defines the context or the concept of outsourcing. Then we have PEO, Professional Employer Organizations and Employee Leasing. PEOs are agencies, unemployment agencies are different entities. So employment agency provides a work finding service for job seekers and supplies employers with applicants they may hire. Okay. A PEO has its own workforce and it supplies by contract to employers with jobs. So this is where leasing comes in. So that is the difference between a professional employer organization and employment agency. Okay. Right now, the trend in business process outsource is about employee leasing. Okay. So it is still within the context of outsourcing, but um, even in virtual business process outsource, it serves as the staff is being leased along with, some equipment. Okay, there are some considerations involved why some companies make such decision. All right, so now let's talk about the recruiting presence and image. Okay, well, of course, recruiting efforts may be viewed as either continuous or intensive recruitment efforts. When we say continuous, you have uh, to recruit offer the advantage of keeping the employer in the recruiting market. For example, with college recruiting, well, some organizations may find it advantageous to have a recruiter perhaps on a given campus each year, like during your job fair and all the stuffs. And then employers that visit a campus occasionally would perhaps be just less likely to build, you know, following. So there should be like more frequent visits of the employer. So that's why the effort should be continuous. Okay. And intensive recruiting may take the form of a vigorous recruiting campaign aimed at hiring a given number of employees, usually within a short period of time. Well, such efforts may be the result of a failure in the HR planning system to, let's say, identify needs in advance or to recognize drastic changes in the workforce, uh, which is due to unexpected workloads. Okay. Employment branding and image, I mentioned about this. Actually, it is a factor impacting recruiting. And Of course, there is a factor that would impact if you project or portray positive image of the employer. Okay, so that's why you can see those ads and posters of the some business process outsource companies in Cebu. These posters are displayed ostentatiously along, every corner of the city. So that is just a form of branding. Um, it is crucial to attract applicants and retain employees who also may describe the organization in either a positive or negative ways in terms of how the organization treat their employees. So that would also create an impact or image. Organizations seen as desirable employers are better able to attract more qualified applicants and of course they are better able to attract such applicants than those, poor organizations with poor reputations, okay? Let's say a company that pays well to their employee will be better off attracting more qualified applicants. Okay. Next is training of recruiters. Of course, you have to provide continuous training and development to your recruiters. Okay. So apart from interviewing techniques, communication skills, knowledge of the jobs uh, being filled, it is crucial that recruiters learn the types of actions that perhaps may violate some, employment rules and regulations. In the context of interview, there are do's and don'ts. I mean, questions that you would ask and questions that you would not ask. Okay. So, for instance, let's say a male college recruiter regularly asks female candidates about their marital status and if they are single, and attractive, he would, let's say, call up the applicants after the interview and then ask for a date. That's quite unethical. So, students may complain about that. Okay. Next is about recruiting or recruitment and diversity consideration. Okay. There will always be aspect of looking into the strategic context of your recruitment and in such a way that you wanted to project a brand or an image that you are an equal employment opportunity, equal employer. Uh, it's an employer that provides equal opportunity. I'm sorry about that. So that is a kind of image you wanted to convey. And then, so let's say a number of factors go into ensuring that your recruitment decisions meet diversity considerations. So recruiting as a key component related activity would be subject to some various considerations, especially in laws and regulations in terms of equal employment opportunities. Okay, so um, you have to develop strategies in terms of recruitment in the context of your diversity and equal employment. Okay, recruiting non-traditional workers. So, uh, well, of course, the growing difficulty that many employers have experienced in attracting and retaining workers, this actually led most of the employers to recruit workers from non-traditional labor pools. Let's say old workers, okay, retirees, stay-at-home moms, but depending upon what kind of industry or jobs that may be available, okay, because there are certain requirements to meet as well. Some choices in recruitment, will it be internal or external? When we say internal, okay, so there are some advantages and some disadvantages. When we say external, of course, there will be some advantages and disadvantages. But recruitment strategy and policy decisions would entail identifying where to recruit, whom to recruit, and how to recruit. So, one of the first decisions determines the extent to which internal and external sources and methods will be used. So both promoting from within the organization, that is internal recruitment. Again, promotion is a form of internal recruitment. Hiring from outside of your company is external recruitment. So there are, like I said, there are some advantages and disadvantages. You can go through this one, okay? And that depends upon the orientation, size, and nature of the business of your organization. So, internal recruitment methods. Uh, well, there are possible strategies that might be used to promote, people from within. If, there are some qualified applicants, okay? And of course, you have to go external if uh, there are not qualified candidates within the organizations, okay? Now let's go to the internal recruiting methods, just to get a focus. There are most common internal recruiting methods would include organizational databases. It is to create an HR management systems. So you just have to compile the background, knowledge, skills, and abilities, that's KSA information of your existing current employees, so the job requirements, so those stuffs. You just have to create a database, okay? With the technology that we have right now, it will be easier to have such databases. Next is job posting. It is a system in which the employer provides notices of the job, of course, like a normal advertisement, be it TV, radio, but normally newspapers before, but right now we use internet. Then promotions and transfers. Of course, you promote. That's movement of a staff, or you transfer the staff to a different task or different department. Okay, and many organizations choose to fill vacancies through promotions or transfers. Okay, so employee transfers or are promoted to, as employees transfer or are promoted to other jobs, individuals must be recruited to fill their vacated jobs. Okay, next is current employee referrals. Okay, this is very common in business process outsource. We just have to ask our people, okay, refer to us your friends. Okay, we will do the rest. And if the friend you referred to us happens to be recruited and has attained regularization, so then there will be, you know, some incentives. Okay. Next is re-recruiting of former employees and applicants. Those people who have been, who had resigned and, joined a different industry. You can have like email blasts informing them that, hey, there are some other opportunities in our organization, so why don't you just come in and let's talk about. Okay, normally when some to maintain good relationships with your employees also, or former employees, when they do exit interview, you always have to inform, so long as the reason for leaving is quite uh, well, the reason is, let's say, the reason is good. The reason is uh, the employees and the employers are having good relationships after they leave. So you can establish network with them. And so you can perhaps tell them that you can come back to us and check every time if we have, you know, some openings, and you are welcome to reapply. Okay? So those statements would be quite, you know, helpful to let or to give the employees, your former employees, a signal that, you know, one day they can come back to and reapply to your company. All right, external recruiting sources. Well, there are some other methods you can use this. Of course, in the university, sorry, in colleges, and schools, okay? So that's just one method we will have to look into. But, you know, uh, it somehow gives a reflection to the employer of what makes an external applicant consider a specific employer. Okay, so this is one reflecting a question um, to all of us employers, like what attracts the right candidate or the right kind of applicants. Okay, will it be the pay? Will it be the relationship within the organization? Will it be the culture? Will it be the ambience of the company? So those stuffs are to be considered by the employer as well. We also have employment agencies and headhunters. I think you probably have heard about this. So uh, these are private employment agencies collecting for a fee. Either the employee or the employer will be, you know, paying such fee. So these agencies do some preliminary screening. They are not actually your employer. They were just being asked by the employer to headhunt candidates. Okay, this is common for um, higher positions. Okay, oh sorry. Or most BPO companies also are doing this for some positions. Okay. Next to that is competitive sources. So other sources for recruitment include professional and trade associations, trade publications such as magazines, newsletters, or websites containing job ads. So these are competitive sources also. And that, well, such sources may be useful for recruitment or recruiting the specialized professionals needed in, you know, certain industries. And employers may have extended recruiting to customers as well, right? Let's say you have a customer and then you happen to have like a short talk about it, or like managers may recommend some customers, okay? So they can be your source, competitive source for a pool of applicants. Media sources, of course, you know, the media right now, the social media, that's gaining popularity. Next to that is job fair and special events. Normally, you know, we will participate in some job fairs in some campuses and universities here. So, you know, we go to your school and conduct interviews, preliminary screening, and then because fresh graduates or schools actually are the best source for entry level candidates. Next, oh, this is about uh, the things to include in an effective recruiting ad. Okay, so you cannot just simply post something that is, you know, less attractive. So, you know, the ad must be very catchy, must be very attractive. And then it should entice applicants to send in the resumes or applications. Okay. Well, regardless perhaps of the medium being used, whether you use traditional media sources or job fairs, it should be tied to your relevant labor market and should provide sufficient information on the company. So that's why like most of the advertisement would have like a brief summary of what the company is all about, what the company is doing, and all the stuff. So this figure just simply gives us an information that you know, how to create or how to have like an effective or what is being included to have an effective recruitment advertisement. Okay, so the details about the job, the application process, the qualifications, so the stuffs. Okay, all right. Next is internet recruitment, which is very popular. So we have e-recruiting, okay? It has become a primary means now for many employers and many employees or potential job candidates as well. Okay, so the internet users just simply, just a click of your finger, and then you can do the application already. Unlike in our times wherein we have to send in the resume, so we need to have like photocopy of our resume, and then we need to have like a 2 by 2 1 by 1 photo. So those stuffs, and we just have to hand carry the application. Okay, so it is quite convenient these days. So there are some, these are just some of the recruiting commerce or electronic, sorry, it's electronic recruiting places. We have internet job boards, Monster, Yahoo, Hot Jobs, MyNemo, JobStreet, etc. Um, some professional career websites, that's Society for Human Resources Management. We have American Society for Training and Development. We have PMAP. This is PMAP actually. It's a People Management Association in the Philippines. And of course, there are some employers having website that would post their jobs on their own portal, okay? Or some blogs and social networks as well could be the best source for your um, job hunting, okay? Now, let's talk about the recruitment evaluation and metrics, okay? Well, to determine how effective your various recruiting sources and methods have been doing. So it is important to evaluate recruiting efforts. Well, I just want to make an emphasis that the primary way to find out whether recruiting efforts are cost effective is to conduct a formal analysis as part of the recruiting evaluation. Although various areas can be measured when trying to analyze recruiting effectiveness. So these are just the 5 areas for evaluation and metrics. So we have quality, yeah, that's quantity of recruits. I mean the number of the applicants that you have. Okay, so the basic measure here considers whether the quantity of recruits is sufficient to fill the job vacancies. Okay, let's say when you post some ads at mynemo.com, in a matter of 5 minutes after you posted it, there are like around 50 uh, applicants sending their application. So that's quantity of recruit. The quality um, that measures and that includes performance appraisal scores, uh, months until promotion, output, and the volume for each hire. Okay. Well, in addition to uh, quantity, the key issue here is whether or not the qualification of applicant pool are sufficient to fill the job opening. Do the applicants meet job specification? Do they perform the jobs well after hire? What is the failure rate of the new hire? So this is, aspect to look into when uh, evaluating the recruitment uh, effort. Okay. Next is the time available for filling empty positions. So it is useful to calculate the average amount of time it takes from contact to hire for each source of applicants because some sources may produce recruits faster than others. Well, looking at the length of time it takes you to fill in opening is usually means of evaluating recruitment efforts. So if job openings are not filled quickly with qualified candidates, the work and productivity of the organization is likely to suffer. Okay. Then cost per uh, recruit. So that's recruiting expenses divided by number of recruits. Okay. So the major calculation used to measure cost is to divide recruiting expenses for the year by the number of hires for the year. Okay, so this is just one measure also. That's cost per recruit. Next is satisfaction of parties involved. Well, certainly the views of managers with the job openings to fill are very important because managers are your internal customers. So managers can respond to questions and about the quality of the applicant pool provided and the recruiter service, the timeliness of the process. Okay, so those stuffs. Let's say I am the manager, the operations manager, and then my the recruiter is quite lousy. So we were not able to fill in the need for quite a long time, and then we lose clients because of that. So it's a bad performance of that HR recruiter. Okay. Next is increasing how to increase recruiting effectiveness. So, well, there are the efforts perhaps to evaluate the recruitment methods should be used to make recruiting activities more effective. That's why we evaluate. No, there are measures. So the use of the data to target different applicant pools and then use different recruiting methods would improve internal handling and interviewing of applicants. So in a way that you are able to attract more candidates as well. And then you train your recruiters, and then the managers can increase recruiting effectiveness as well. So these are the 5 technology-aided approaches to recruiting. One is you mine resume. So instead of you waiting for the applicants to send in the application, you have to look for the resume or the applicants. So there are some software actually you can use that. Then applicant tracking. That is an approach that takes an applicant all the way from the job listing to performance appraisal result. Okay, you can have that with your HRIS also. Employer career website, a candidate recruiting place on an employer's website where applicants can see what jobs are available to uh, apply. Okay. While of course, most of the employers have website nowadays, so you can just check the website and then see for some job opportunities. Internal mobility. So it is a system that tracks prospects in the company and matches them with jobs as they come open. So as you can see that these are technology-aided approaches. Now, in HR, we use a system, a software, and generally we call it HRIS. That's Human Resources Information System. And that depends upon what kind of HRIS or what kind of software you are using. So it may be that the HRIS is from hiring to firing also. Okay? And we have the technical, non-technical issues also. Okay. One is that personable recruiters who communicate well with applicants. Okay. This is one aspect that would make big difference and emphasizing positives about the job and employer within a realistic job. And then fair and considerate treatment of applicants. And the last one is about enhancing applicants' perceived fit with the organization. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah. That is the end of our session, guys, and I will be sending you an email on this one. So to sum up with, well, recruiting is a process of generating a pool of qualified applicants for organizational jobs. Of course, through a series of activities. So recruitment must be viewed strategically, and that discussion should be held about the relevant labor markets in which you are going to recruit. So, a strategic approach to recruitment begins with human resource planning and the decisions about your organizational recruiting responsibilities. Okay, so it's actually 11:12 p.m. here. It's quite late, and I will be uploading this on YouTube so I could send you the link right away. Thank you so much, everyone.